According to CPD, the person taken into custody for allegedly fatally shooting 31-year-old Romeca Blackmon is released without charges.
How did she just walk away? How? When they told you that he had her in the headlock, how did he even walk away?
I'm Tia Ewing with an update on a fatal shooting that happened back in September in the South Loop. Quadajah Johnson is now charged with first-degree murder in the death of 31-year-old Romeca Blackmon.
When people do the most, I do the analysis. Let's go. Quadajah Johnson was initially arrested and released without charges immediately following that fatal shooting of Romeca Blackmon on September 8th. Now, that decision caused public outrage that spread throughout the country. However, she was rearrested on December 4th, and this time she got charged with first-degree murder. Although the state of Illinois abolished its death sentence, a charge of homicide in the first degree carries a mandatory jail sentence of 25 years to life. And the reason that Quadajah Johnson, who goes by the name of Holly on social media, was released on September 8th is because Holly declared self-defense and the Chicago police didn't have enough evidence to charge her at that time. In other words, they couldn't prove that the act wasn't self-defense, so they had to let her go while they launched a criminal investigation. But after the 3-month investigation, the state's attorney's office was convinced that they not only had enough evidence to rearrest Holly, but to charge her with murder in the first degree. And not only that, Holly's request for a bond was rejected based on the egregious behavior that she displayed on the day of the incident and also her actions on social media after being released. Tia Ewing of Fox News gave us the details on that, so let's listen in.
And if this is true, the judge said
the fist bump
and the chokehold, that the dad that they share together had her in a chokehold. What do you need to pull your gun out for?
Yeah, if there's someone who is actively helping you.
The judge said someone like that, basically, I'm essentially going to, melt down his words into essentially what he said, does not deserve to be out roaming the streets.
I want to make it clear up front that this is my opinion. It's based on what Illinois law says about sentencing. It's not a prediction from inside the courtroom, and I'm not giving out legal advice. But I am breaking down what the law says happens in cases like this, specifically in the state of Illinois, where I live. Several content creators have been blogging in defense of Holly, saying it was self-defense and hashtag keep Holly free. And after the first degree charge was handed down, many of them are still hopeful that Holly is going to be offered a plea deal and one day be released from prison. And so I want to address a question that a lot of y'all have been asking because I see it in comments every time a case like this comes up. If the state believes they have enough evidence to convict Quadajah Johnson, why would they even entertain a plea deal? And that's a fair question, but here's the part people don't always understand. A plea deal is not a sign that the state has a weak case. It's a sign that the state is being strategic with their move. If there's no plea deal in Quadajah Johnson's case, that means the case is going to go to trial. And even with strong evidence, trials are a gamble. And jury trials can be very unpredictable. You can have what looks like an airtight case on paper and still lose it in front of 12 strangers. All it takes is one juror who sees things different, or one issue with a witness, or one moment where reasonable doubt creeps in. So prosecutors don't just ask, did this happen? They ask, can we prove every element beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury of 12 people? Well, a plea deal takes that gamble off the table. In this case, Quadajah Johnson has already admitted to unaliving Romeca Blackmon, but she claims it was done in self-defense. All it takes is for one juror to say, I believe Holly was in fear for her life. And that single holdout could result in a hung jury. So essentially, a plea deal guarantees prison time. And that makes better sense for the prosecution now, right? If the state agrees to a plea, even to something like second-degree murder, that will still come with a serious prison time, especially especially when the firearm enhancements are involved. And in this case, they would be. From the state's perspective, that's a guaranteed conviction, a guaranteed sentence, and no chance that the defendant's going to walk away free because a juror went another way. Let's talk about firearm enhancements for a second. Firearm enhancements is leverage that the courts can use to guarantee a lengthy sentence, even if a release date is granted. In the state of Illinois, those enhancements are mandatory, and they add a lot of time onto the sentence. So the state could say, we'll reduce the charge or cap the sentence, but you're still going to prison. And that's not letting someone get off. That's negotiating the outcome while still protecting the public. And y'all remember the judge refused bail because he believed that Holly Johnson is a danger to society.
Someone like that basically does not deserve to be out roaming the streets.
There's also something called finality. Trials create appeal issues, but a plea deal is going to dramatically limit those appeal opportunities. In other words, once someone pleads guilty knowingly and voluntarily, that conviction is much harder to undo. A plea deal gives closure without dragging everyone through years of that legal back and forth. If Quadajah's attorney is able to get her a plea deal, Quadajah would be foolish not to accept it. And why is that? Because the first-degree murder charge almost guarantees that she's going to spend the rest of her life in prison. But what are her options for a plea deal under the Illinois sentencing guidelines? If someone is convicted of first-degree murder, the sentencing law says that they must be sentenced to imprisonment. And the usual term is at least 20 years and up to 60 years behind bars. Under certain extended term provisions, it could be 60 to 100 years. Holly Johnson is 30 years old, so you do the math. Now in Illinois, second-degree charges is a lesser included offense that can apply when there are mitigating factors. Like if the defendant acted under a sudden passion from serious provocation, or if they had even an unreasonable belief in the need to defend themselves. Second-degree homicide is classified as a Class 1 felony, which means the sentencing range before enhancements are tacked on will typically look something like this: 4 to 20 years behind bars under normal Illinois sentencing law. Now, probation may be possible in some second-degree cases, but that's extremely rare and it depends heavily on the facts. But let's face it, I hear Holly has a great attorney, but she's not getting probation. Here's the thing though, even second-degree murder in Illinois is a serious felony, and if a firearm enhancement applies, which in this case it does, those mandatory years would still be tacked on. So even a plea to second degree, it still means that a substantial prison sentence is going to be handed down because the firearm enhancement isn't just dropped arbitrarily. According to state law, if Quadajah Johnson is convicted on second degree charges, she will face anywhere between 19 and 45 years in an Illinois state prison. Even with the lengthiest sentence, though, Quadajah could be released at the age of 55 if she receives time off for good behavior. That's a 50% reduction to her sentence if she behaves. You don't get that good behavior option with a first-degree sentence. So in closing, if the state entertains a plea deal in this case, it doesn't mean that they don't believe in their evidence. It means they're choosing certainty over risk. And under Illinois law, especially with mandatory firearm enhancements, the idea that someone in this situation can avoid prison altogether is extremely unlikely. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below letting me know your thoughts. Do you think Holly will take a gamble and go to trial believing she can get off and avoid prison time altogether? Meet me in the comments. We can continue the conversation there.